Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Nurul Sumayah binti Usiadi and my matric number is 1231930. Today our group will be presenting about the nature of revelation and faith in the Western tradition. Before we discuss the topic in detail, let me begin with an introduction. Revelation and faith are two fundamental concepts in the Western religion tradition, especially in Christianity. In general, revelation refers to the God disclosure of divine truth to humanity, while faith is the human response to that revelation through belief, trust, and commitment. These two concepts have played a significant role in shaping Western theology, philosophy, and the understanding of God, human existence, and knowledge. However, with the rise of philosophy, science, and modern rationalism, the understanding of revelation and faith gradually changed. Many Western thinkers began to emphasize human reason and empirical knowledge, which led to different interpretations of divine revelation and the rule of faith. Therefore, this presentation will examine the concept of revelation and faith in the Western tradition, the relationship between revelation and science, and finally the responses of Muslim scholars, including Sheikh Muhammad Naqib Al-Atas, towards the Western understanding of this concept. So next, the research question for this study are first, what are the concepts of revelation and faith in the Western tradition? Second, how did the conflict between revelation and science develop in the modern Western tradition? And third, how do Muslim scholars respond to the Western understanding of revelation and faith? Next, research objective. First, to explain the concept of revelation and faith in the Western tradition. Second, to analyze the developments of the relationship between revelation and science in the modern Western tradition. And third, to examine the responses of Muslim scholars towards the Western understanding of revelation and faith. Next, our research methodology. This study uses the qualitative research because it focuses on understanding the concept of revelation and faith. Also, the data were collected from academic books, journal and articles related to the topic, and the data were analyzed using descriptive analysis to explain the concept and analytical analysis to examine and compare different perspectives.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Warina Shazwani. My matric number 1231990, and I would like to present about the concept of revelation in Western tradition. In the Christian tradition, revelation means God showing Himself completely to humanity through Jesus. The idea here that God has always spoken clearly to us, but humans are simply not very good at listening. This became a major topic during the Middle Ages when the first university was built in Europe. Scholars started asking, how does God's message fit with human learning? To answer this, they are connected to the two things. First, sensual, which is our everyday logic and science, and second, spiritual, which is the deeper wisdom we use to understand life. By blending them together, they show up how our temporary daily life are connected to something bigger and eternal. Next, we discuss about concept faith in Western tradition. So, what faith actually means in the Western Christian tradition is much more than just having an opinion or blindly believing in something. Instead, faith is a complete whole person response to God, and it sits on three main pillars. First, it is rational. Christian thinkers argue that faith is not blind, it's backed by God, by good reason and logic, because it's based on what God has revealed. Second is relational. Faith is about trust, loyalty, and confidence. It's not about memorizing abstract, boring ideas. It's about a personal relationship with God. Finally, it is holistic. It connects your mind, your feeling, your choice, and your love. In short, faith is not just a thought in your head, it is a lifestyle of trust and love that change how you think and how you live every single day. Okay, right now we are into the background of crisis between science and revelation. So looking at the historic crisis between revelation and science in the Western world, this was not just a simple argument between religion and technology. It was a massive shift in how humanity decide what is true. Originally, science and faith lived in harmony. During the Middle Ages, the Christian worldview was the foundation for everything. Early scientific giants like Copernicus, Galileo, and Newton actually viewed the world as a way to understand God's wisdom. To them, studying nature was studying God's creation. by tension sparked when scientific discoveries started clashing with the literal reading of the Bible. The most famous example is Galileo being condemned by Decius for arguing that the Earth orbits the Sun, not the other way around. The breaking point came during the scientific revolution and the Enlightenment. Suddenly, humanism met and hands-on experiment became the ultimate test for truth. Philosophers started pushing the idea that the universe runs itself through the natural law without needing daily divine intervention. Step by step, religious revelation lost its crown as the ultimate source of knowledge. Finally, the 19th century delivered the biggest shockwave with the Charles Darwin theory of evolution. By explaining the development of life through natural selection, Darwinism directly challenged traditional creation stories. At the same time, science became its own professional, independent field. Theology was pushed out of university science labs and confined strictly to personal faith and morality. So, to wrap up, the crisis between science and revolution was not just about fossil or planet. It was a complete transformation of Western thought where humanism had evidence gradually replaced divine revelation as our primary way of understanding reality.
The medieval worldview, harmony between revelation and reason. Before the emergence of modern science, Western medieval thought generally viewed revelation and reason as two sources of knowledge that could support each other. During this period, religious understanding played an important role in explaining the natural world. One of the most influential thinkers was Thomas Aquinas, who attempted to harmonize Christian theology with Aristotelian philosophy. Based on his worldview, nature was not seen merely as a physical object, but as something that contained purpose, meaning, and order created by God. Medieval scholars studied nature through philosophical reasoning and logical explanation. Although observation was also used, scientific inquiry at that time was mainly influenced by Aristotle's framework, which focused on understanding the essence and purpose of things rather than conducting systematic experiments. Therefore, before the rise of modern science, there was generally a closer relationship between religious thought, philosophy, and the study of nature. The scientific revolution and the changing understanding of nature. However, this relationship began to change significantly during the 17th century with the emergence of the scientific revolution. This period introduced a new approach to understanding nature based on observation, experimentation, and mathematical analysis. One important figure was Galileo Galilei, whose ideas about astronomy challenged some traditional views of the universe that were connected with the medieval understanding of nature. His work, Dialogue Concerning with the Two Chief World System in 1632, became one of the important events in the development of modern scientific thought. Another major figure was Isaac Newton, whose Principia Mathematica in 1687 demonstrated that natural phenomena could be explained through universal mathematical law. This development changed the way people view the natural world, moving from explanations based mainly on philosophical reasoning towards explanation based on empirical evidence and scientific method. As a result, science gradually gained a more independent position in explaining the universe and natural phenomena. The beginning of tension between science and revelation. The development of modern science gradually created tension between scientific reasoning and religious authority. As scientific methods became more influential, some traditional religious interpretation of nature began to be questioned. Previously, nature was understood as having purpose and meaning that reflected divine order. However, modern science increasingly viewed nature as a system that could be measured, observed, and explained through universal law without necessarily referring to religious explanation. This shift did not mean that all scientists rejected religion, but it changed the relationship between science and revelation. Science became associated with empirical evidence and rational investigation, while revelation was increasingly placed within the area of faith and religious belief. Therefore, the scientific revolution became one of the important factors that contributed to the later
discussion and conflict between science and revelation in the Western tradition.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Fatin Nur Asrina binti Raslan and my metric number 1231937. As the final speakers, I will discuss the Muslim scholars' response and critique of the Western understanding of revelation and faith, focusing on the views of Professor Muhammad Kamal Hassan, Ibn Taymiyyah and Sheikh Muhammad Naqib Al-Atas. Firstly, according to Professor Muhammad Kamal Hassan, the modern Western understanding of knowledge was largely shaped by the Enlightenment in the 18th century. During this period, reason was separated from revelation and became the only accepted source of truth and human progress. As a result, Western civilization achieved remarkable scientific and technological development. However, the worldview also encouraged secularism, humanism, and materialism while pushing religion into the private sphere. Professor Kamal Hassan argues that this mindset also contributed to imperialism and colonialism, allowing Western powers to dominate and exploit many parts of Asia and Africa for centuries. Secondly, Ibn Taymiyyah presents a very different understanding of faith and knowledge. He argues that faith in God is not merely the result of logical reasoning. Instead, it is based on three interconnected foundations: revelation, reason, and fitrah, or the natural disposition that Allah has placed within every human being. In his view, revelation remains the highest authority, while reason functions as a tool to understand revealed truth rather than replace it. At the same time, fitrah naturally guides human beings toward recognizing God and distinguish right from wrong. This balanced approach remains relevant today, especially in Islamic education and interfaith dialogue, because it combines critical thinking with moral awareness while preserving the authority of revelation. Lastly, Sheikh Muhammad Naqib Al-Atas offers a broader critique of modern Western civilization. He argues that the West is facing a crisis of knowledge because it separates religion from knowledge and gives excessive importance to secularism, rationalism, and materialism. According to Al-Atas, this separation creates confusion about the true purpose of life, human nature, and the role of revelation. He believes that relying only on reason and empirical science cannot answer the deeper questions of existence. Instead, true knowledge should integrate revelation, reason, and spiritual understanding, leading human beings toward certainty in God, moral responsibility, and genuine happiness. In summary, these Muslim scholars reject the idea that reason alone is sufficient to understand reality. Instead, they emphasize that revelation should remain the primary source of truth, with reason serving revelation rather than replacing it. This perspective provides a more balanced understanding of faith, knowledge, and human civilization.
To conclude, revelation and faith are important concepts in the Western tradition and have shaped Western religious thought. However, their understanding hinges due to the influence of science and modern rationalism. From the Islamic perspective, Sheikh Muhammad Naqib Al-Atas emphasizes that revelation is the highest source of knowledge. That's all from our group. Thank you.